So I just want to explain really quickly, just in case you didn't get that. My name is Camry Lowy. This is for DHH 638, and I am going to be reviewing my lesson for my English, or my primary class, and it's for a 3rd grade. So a few of the changes that I had made, and I will be citing a little bit more in just a second, but a few of the changes that I made to the original lesson plan was the changing of the book. They originally had them reading a book called The Tiger Rising. I actually changed the book to Charlotte's Web because that is actually a book that I am helping one of my DHH students read right now for her 3rd grade class. So it sort of just works out really nicely because I can actually apply this lesson to our sessions that I see her in. So one of the main goals that I want to teach my kids are that certain characters come and they go with, and relationships change within the story. I think that the original lesson plan was focusing on the changing of a character's attitude, but with this particular lesson I focused on changing of friendships within the story and different elements, because Wilbur oftentimes has so many friends that he has made throughout the story of Charlotte's Web that I think it's important to focus on that, why those friendships are important in the story, as well as how they develop throughout the story. So the framing questions that I had originally written down were discussing Fern and Wilbur's relationship. That's really one of the first foundational relationship and friendships that Wilbur had. So I think that's a really important thing to touch on with students. So the question that I'm going to give students is, and so that question is discuss how Fern and Wilbur's relationship actually grew in the beginning of the story. What jeopardized Fern and Wilbur's friendship, and then to think about the friendships that the students have and that maybe have been jeopardized or challenged. The link to the standards that I had chosen are for CCSS ELA Literacy RL31, and it's to ask and answer questions to demonstrate an understanding of text, referring to explicitly to the text and basis of answers. And then the Literacy RL3.2 as well. Recount stories, fables, folktales, and myths from diverse cultures. Determine the central message, lesson, or moral, and explain how it is conveyed throughout key detailed text. And I think that really hits home for what I'm trying to display here, which is talk about the central message of friendship throughout the story, how Charlotte and Wilbur's friendship had developed, how Fern and Wilbur's friendship had developed, what characters are important friendships. Let's say Templeton is not necessarily an important character, but the relationship that him and Wilbur have is still important in the story. And then the last core common standard is describe characters in a story, their traits, motivations, or feelings, and explain how their actions contribute to a sequence of events. So a way to really connect and motivate these students is when reading Charlotte's Web to discuss different characters and their personalities. I think that Templeton has this very laid-back personality that goes sort of against Wilbur's high-strung, paranoid personality, whereas Charlotte Webb is very mothering. How do all of those characters sort of combine together and really work as a team and as a unit? So I think that's really important to say. And then you start to connect well with their own friends. Do they have friends that are a different personality than them? Some may be more hyper, some may be more willing and outgoing, while others are more shy and like to put their nose in a book. So it's just really trying to help students compare and relate to the friendships that they have in their own lives. We also talked about thinking aloud. So I think it's really important for students to really share and relate to a story that the teacher helps give. So one of the examples that I give, and I'll actually sign it, hopefully it'll be, I haven't signed in a while because I don't have these students right now that sign, they're all oral. So out of 55 students that I have, they're all oral, happen to be. So I will do my best, though. I need more practice anyway. So one of the stories that I wanted to share with my students was how I met one of my best friends. So here we go. So really what I just explained is that I met a girl when I was on a cruise, and we actually really got along. She was playing basketball one day, and I loved basketball at the time, so I asked if I can actually play with her. And you know, ever since that point on, every day of the cruise we played and we played and we got into all this adventure and fun together. And then on the last day of the cruise we ended up having to leave, and I was of course really sad, but we still got to continue our friendship via email and phone calls, even though she was in New York and I was in California. So I think it's important for students to really relate to things like that on putting yourself out there and finding different friends. So active involvement that I have the students doing is a we try. So it's actually putting students together in pairs or in table groups and discuss the relationships that Wilbur has with each supporting character, such as Fern, Templeton, Charlotte, Lamb, and even Goose, because each of those characters have a different personality, and how they interact with Wilbur and how their friendship develops is actually different, varying on each character. So I asked them to determine why they feel like Wilbur values their friendship of each of the people, and then also is there a part of the story where Wilbur's friends are around him but he still feels lonely? Why do you think that is? I think that's really important to notice that personality differences in characters. Wilbur's, you know, kind of sort of I feel sorry for myself kind of pig, and for them to determine that his friends are really there to pick him up and hold that morale is really important. And then I asked them to really start to reflect on their own friendships with their pairs as well. Independent practice is on a individual activity where I want them to actually be Wilbur, and I want them to write a letter to Charlotte explaining why their friendship is so important to him, and explaining why the advice that she had given him, as well as all the times that she had been there for him, has been such a valuable part of his life, and that it's a friendship that he really won't forget, and I want them to provide examples. So this is technically in a letter format, and then we'll be able to send this off to Charlotte afterwards. Differentiated activities include one-to-one support or conferencing with the teacher, creating sentence prompts that students can use if they're having trouble, allowing students to create outlines or graphic organizers beforehand, and then front-loading new vocabulary, providing visuals of the character, and providing pages of examples of questions that need to be answered in a letter. So. The sharing and closure, I think, is a really important aspect of the lesson, and that's for students to close out the lesson and to share their responses and share their letters with the class. Thank you.